Hey everybody, it's Trey Holiday, and I have the pleasure of sitting down with the content creator in the building, Tash Haynes. What's up,
Hey, how are
Tosh?
you?
I'm well. How are
I'm
you?
good. I'm good.
Well, I just keep hearing so many great things about you, and we got to just start because you're talking about being born and raised right here in
Right here, I
Tacoma.
am homegrown,
Uh,
right here in Tacoma.
Amazing, amazing. Tell us a bit about what you do and how you really got started in photography.
Yeah, so I am a professional wedding and portrait photographer, and I'm a full-time content creator. My platform of choice is Instagram. I know all the cool kids are on TikTok, but I just turned 40, so I like to hang in the back. I got into photography. I'm aged out of the foster care system, so I grew up around other people's families and really admiring everybody else's stories and their pictures. And I just vowed. I remember being like maybe 8 or 9 that I would never my kids would never wonder what I was like or what my story was because I would take pictures of everything. Fast forward like 10, 15 years, I went to college and grad school and did all the things. I was actually in youth development. And then I lost a family member and I used the camera to pull myself out of depression. And here we are, 13 years in business, right here in
Wow.
Tacoma.
Well, I gotta say, I mean, that's a phenomenal feat. Kudos to you
Thank
for
you.
having that insight and really that drive. There's something so resilient about the inner drive to like persevere in something like photography, right? And particularly, I think in this day and
I
age,
agree.
where everybody has like a really cool iPhone and it's like, don't worry, I got this. But there's something so special about really understanding the fundamentals of photography. Tell us a bit about how you really said, this is how I'm going to do it, and finding your aesthetic and finding your way.
Yeah, well, we started our business in 2009. So this was right before social media like really took off. So we were at the beginning of the whole Instagram, kind of Facebook, like document your life, share your story thing. And I think one of the things that my husband and I are in business together. So one of the things that we've always done is just we wanted to create something that was classic. Like we didn't want it to be dated. So through the trends and through all of the different things that have happened, we've always just like remained true that we want to create classic imagery that is modern, but that will stand the test of time. So when you look at one of our images, we don't want it to feel like it was taken in 2010 or 2015 or 2021. We want it to be as beautiful as it was in 2010 now and in 10 more years. And so that's kind of the goal. We never kind of jump on trends. We just try to keep it classic and real and true. And I always talk about how I think it's really important for people to use their iPhones and to understand how to take pictures because everyone deserves to have memories, right?
Yeah.
That's why I got into this business. And so I don't want to be like a gatekeeper of that. But I feel like there's a difference between fast food and a luxury meal. And that's how I feel about photography. Like everyone has fast food every once in a while, and that's what our phones are for. But when you want that good meal that you can sit down and enjoy, that's when you call on me and Ike, and we make it happen for you. So
Ooh, so dope, so dope. I
thank
mean,
you.
this is come on now. I love me some love couples doing things together. Tell us a bit about where you guys decided let's do this together.
Oh my gosh, I didn't want to do it with
Yeah.
him at all. It was not an agreement that we were going to do this together. I was shooting first, and he was really into video. And as I was learning how to use the camera, he was like, "This is really cool." We're actually very competitive. We're 4 days apart. We're both Tauruses, and so he was just like, he would want to get the camera and see if he could like create what I was creating or create something better. So it became like very competitive at first. So I just was always annoyed that he was in my space and I wanted my own thing, but I just came to learn after like thank goodness for elders and ancestors and things, right? Because they sit down with us and they tell us the things that we need to hear or don't want to hear. And one woman sat down with me and she said, as long as you fight Ike being a part of this business, it will never go where it's supposed to go. She was like, there's strength in numbers, and you guys will be able to go wherever you want to go if you let him in. And so finally, I was like, okay, fine. And she was right. He's a brilliant photographer. His strengths are actually my weaknesses. My strengths are his weaknesses, and we are so much better together than we are apart.
That's a beautiful story, and I agree. Sometimes you need to be sat down and
That's
tell
a
some
word,
things,
right?
but also you got to be willing to listen.
It's
I
true.
think we also are running into. I'm 42, right, and so I understand where you're coming from. I think we're on in this generation where we get it, right, but there's other generations that are like, well, you can't tell me nothing. We deal with that,
Yeah.
and so you got to be willing also to hear that wisdom. Well, while we're sitting here in this amazing space, here at the Washington History Museum, and in this exhibition of the Green Book, where there was so many photographs used to bring this together, tell us a bit about where you say your imagery is basically timeless,
Yeah.
and how this exhibition resonates with you as a professional photographer.
You're gonna make me emotional. So my family and I got the opportunity to do the Civil Rights Trail back in February for Black History Month in partnership with Alaska Airlines, and it was driving through the South, which was the first time we've ever done that, that we really got to experience what it may have been like for our parents, our grandparents during that time. And as we were driving like the back streets into Alabama, like those country sundown roads, right, that you should not be on, we were actually driving from Birmingham to Selma at sunset. So, you know, we've seen like my husband loves Lovecraft Country, so we've like seen these shows, right, and we've heard these stories, and I'm like on this backcountry road with my husband and my 3 little girls, and I'm thinking through like all of our ancestors and all the things that they did for us. And the pictures for me are so powerful because with one image, you get a whole story, you get a whole understanding of what's happening, right? So I stepped in here today and I was reading some of the quotes above the pictures, and I'm just in awe of like the way they told the stories and how lucky we are to be able to have access to those stories. But also, I was looking at a quote up here and I took a picture of it. It was something that was said a while ago, but it like still applies now. And so I feel like imagery and pictures, they show us how far we've come, but they also show us how far we still need to go. And I think that they're a really beautiful, I guess, monument of who we are in our history. If we didn't have these pictures, we wouldn't have a history. Because our histories don't necessarily make it into the books. So these pictures, I think, are really sacred and really important to tell our stories, and especially for, you know, those that are coming up after us who feel so disconnected from history, or they feel like our history is all about being strong and resilient and not about like the beautiful things that we've accomplished or we've done, or how these choices or these decisions that were made are why we're able to sit here and have these conversations. I think it's important that we have them.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. You know, I have 2 sons, and I hear about your 3 little girls. It's a beautiful thing to be a mother, to be stewarding this kind of understanding, and I think cultural responsiveness in our children, in the next generation, right? And so I'm always instilling that kind of lesson in my sons, like, hey, you have to understand that you're a part of this legacy. You know, our culture didn't just start with your birth or my, you know, what you see with your grandparents. You have to understand this rich history that isn't often taught to you in the history books. And, you know, I was just talking about that, how museums really kind of steward some of that understanding and knowledge into our memories, right? Like looking at some of these photos, you go, oh my goodness, you know, I could see myself there. I could place myself in that environment, right? And you're also so right about the fact that we still have so far to go in what you do as a travel blogger, a photographer, a content creator. Tell us a bit about how that rich history of Blackness in this country resonates with your work.
So that's, whew, man, it's really loaded, a loaded response for me. You said like it's important that there's an understanding, but I also think that there's a responsibility as well. And I think in the last couple years, I've stepped into understanding the responsibility. Growing up here in the Northwest, I haven't always felt like connected to Black stories or Black history because it's not like around me in the same way that it is for other people in other parts of the country, excuse me. But recently, a couple years ago, I found out I was Haitian. And so as I was deep diving into understanding that culture and my history there, I started to also deep dive into understanding like Black American history and culture, and kind of unlearning and undoing the things that I believe to be true, and really kind of coming to grips with what it means to be Black, especially what it means to be a Black woman, especially what it means to raise Black women in America. And as a content creator, I feel that it's important to spend time on the beautiful parts of our story, the softness of a black woman, the softness of a black mother, the things that are not always told, the things that aren't always portrayed, and bring that to the forefront. As a photographer, I want to tell those stories, but as a blogger and influencer, I also want to share my story, my family story, my husband raising 3 little black girls. Like, there are all these stereotypes about who we are and how we exist, and I feel like it's my job to scream that there's more to our story than that. And so as a creator and as a photographer, I will go above and beyond to create things that highlight the things that aren't always spoken about when it comes to black parents, black men, black women, and to share those things and to elevate them and to put them into the forefront. For my 40th birthday, I created a film called The Romanticization of the Black Woman. And I put all these things in this film to reclaim them back for us. So for example, I had these earrings, and in these earrings, there was a black woman who was nursing a white baby. And in my film, I nursed my baby. And it was my way of honoring what we had done, but also reclaiming it back for us, right? A lot of times there's a big celebration of like white women carrying their babies, baby wearing, but we've been baby wearing since the beginning of time. So it's like taking these things and bringing ourselves back into the conversation. And I feel like as a creator, it's my job to push those images and those stories to the forefront.
I resonate with that 100%. And the reason why, I do this work, particularly with Converge and even some of the other media work I do in community, is because I understand the importance of us being the stewards of our narratives, and the fact that we also have to dismantle how jaded our narratives have shown up in society for generations, right? And so the idea is that, we get to steward these stories, and we get to really shine a light on folks like yourselves who are doing phenomenal things. That's so important to me.
And you guys do such an amazing job of it too.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Seriously.
But it's also this intentionality, because we already know that a lot of other spaces won't do that. Right. And so it's exactly what you're talking about in terms of, like, we understand there's so much more we have to do to kind of break that monotony. And I'm glad that you take that in when you're creating content as well. Now, you talked about this civil rights tour, right? In partnership with Alaska Airlines, one of our friends too here at Converge. But tell us a bit about, that importance for you and your family to say, man, we get to do this tour, but tell us about some of that background understanding of being like, man, not only am I going to do this, but I'm also going to be making sure I'm capturing it in a way that is, again, timeless.
Yeah, so it's really interesting, as you mentioned this, because when I first kind of pitched the idea to Alaska, I really thought it was me doing something for my audience, because I live here in the Northwest, and I've been in photography for a long time, which is kind of like a predominantly white kind of career path or whatever. I have a really very white audience, and so I was like, this is a really great opportunity for me to bring my audience along, as well as Alaska's audience along. So I didn't think I was going to get much from it, if I'm just being honest, right? That trip changed me. It changed me on a cellular soul level. And when I talked about this with Omari last time, I burst into tears, because it was just so profound for me. I think so much of my pride in being a black woman has been around like what we've overcome and our strength and our resilience. And really, when I did that, I learned so much. There was just so much history that I just had no clue about, that had never made it into books. Like, there were just these communities that existed that I just had no idea about, right? So for me, going on that tour and doing those different parts of those, like, we went to the Civil Rights Museum at the Lorraine Hotel. We went to these places that are really important, but I think what I decided was that I didn't want to share anything that we know the stories, we know our traumatic, painful stories. I think there are parts of our stories that have to be shared so that we can move into the next thing, but I really wanted to highlight the things that I felt like people wouldn't know. And so as I was sharing, it was really just to bring an understanding to the timeline, which is not as long and historic as people think. It's actually quite short. My grandmother was born in 1928, so was Dr. King. He was assassinated in 1963. That was 39 years I was 39 years on the civil rights trail. So being 39 and recognizing that at 39 years old, this man was called to do something like that. And I'm thinking, I'm 39, I haven't figured out I feel like I'm just getting into high school, just
Yeah.
figuring this thing out. Like life has been like so shaky up to this point. And then recognizing from, 1968 to 1982 when I was born wasn't that much time either. And really bringing that awareness to my audience and then sharing so much more than our trauma. In fact, I refused to share our trauma. And then when I did share it, I had a caveat for why I was sharing it. And so I just really wanted, one, the people that were showing me that were unaware of our stories to be enlightened by them. And then I wanted to make Black people who were following the story very, very proud of how the story was being told.
I just love, I really enjoy hearing that because I'm telling you, for me, that's what's resonating when I walk around here. Who would have, I wonder if people who were snapping these photos, right, and who, had these artifacts, if they understood that, decades later, generations later, we would be seeing these images in the way that we are, right? And so you're so right that there is almost a double lens as a Black female photographer, right? You and your husband, Black male, that you guys have to take on with you because there's so much responsibility and accountability to the audience to ensure that what you're sharing isn't the same depictions of what we, have heard about time and time again.
Yeah.
So we have to kind of break the mold, so to speak.
It's just like a mindfulness,
Yeah.
and a sensitivity, which we are not experiencing right now in media at all.
Yeah.
And so to be cognizant of that is really intentional. And most people are not intentional about the things that they share or how they share them. But that was really important to me and is always important to me when I'm sharing.
Well, as we talk about you as a content creator and influencer, travel blogger, all of these things, tell us a bit about some of your tips because there's a lot of folks that are like, man, I want to get into that. I'm trying to figure like you said, we're figuring ourselves out day by day. But tell us a bit about what that looked like for you so people can understand it's a real journey to get to that place.
Yeah, so I feel like one of the things that I had to do when I started thinking about content creation in a terms of monetization was separate my emotions from the job, right? So I don't get on Instagram with my feelings. I get on Instagram with my business hat on. And I'm just going to use Instagram, but there's all kinds of platforms. The same rules apply, right? It's very easy to get caught up in the things that are happening. But then I think I had to change my mindset from entertainment and being on the app to be entertained or to gain something and show up and go, what can I give? How can I provide information, content that is going to be useful and helpful to people? So if someone was asking me how do I get into what you're doing, or how do I start working with brands, or how do I show up to this space, I'd be like, well, what are you good at? What do you feel you're the expert at? What do you want to be known for? Really tune into that and figure out how you can add value to your audience, and then consistently show up and do that. And I think over time, that's not obviously that's not the only thing, but these are over time, when you're consistently showing up, when you're doing a great job, when you're providing excellent content that is helpful and useful and evergreen, people start to pay attention. And I didn't go into this going, I want to be a content creator. I was just minding my business, right? And a pandemic came and kind of threw my whole life off. But I just was I really love sharing stories, and I want to share more of our stories. And it was prompted from 2020 and just being so tired of men being basically assassinated on television. And I really wanted my followers to stop seeing me as I don't see color. Well, actually, I need you to see color because it's very much who I am. And it's a defining factor of my personality. And I just wanted them to see me as a Black person and understand the things that you're seeing on TV are very much my real life and real concerns that I deal with day to day. We know what that's like, right? But a lot of people don't understand because they're just seeing you. I just see you, I love you, your personality, but no, there's so much more here. And I need you to pause and go, wow, this is her life, or this is their life, or this is what their kids are dealing with and experiencing. And how are you going to be an accomplice not an ally? How are you going to be an accomplice in helping to make sure that this isn't my reality anymore?
Yeah, that's a really great distinction from ally to accomplice, because I think sometimes people really get misconstrued by what that means or what that looks like. But particularly in this day and age, I think we're still carrying so much of the messages that we're seeing right here throughout the Green Book.
Right.
And for me, I'll say it's so important. When people ask me similar questions, I'm always like, you know what, like you said, I'm really just me, right? And I have to be very authentic and genuine in all of the spaces I'm in, because that's who I am, right? And so I can't like turn on for the camera. It just is who I am, right? And Omari and I have had those days where we're like, man, this news is kind of browbeaten. We gotta find that way to stay resilient in our peace and our joy. How do we carry that through when we're dealing with so much of the newsy type things? So I really appreciate that you have that kind of intentionality and that level of care when you're thinking about the content that you're creating. I mean, I am so inspired by all of these images. As you walk around here, I just got to ask you, you were talking about how some of the quotes are really standing out to you. And as a photographer, this imagery, I just think 50 years from now, some of your imagery possibly, being in a place like this. Tell us a bit about how that resonates with you, because there is some amazing imagery here. Some of it is like staged, right? Some of it is just in the field, but just it's so important that we understand how powerful imagery is.
Imagery speaks in a way that nothing else can, right? I mean, you can see, I'm looking at this picture behind us, there's a whole story here. And there's the story that's being told, the true story, but then there's the imagined story, right? And it's like, how did we get here? And what is this launching pad of to get us to this point too? I think imagery is so important. And I think we're seeing that in everything that we do, right? Pictures they run the world right now, picture and video. That is what's important. And so as I think about being in this space and all of the stories or all of the things that you get to learn from watching or looking at these pictures, and then I think about 50 years from now and my own imagery and the stories that they tell, it just defines even the more how important photography is, storytelling is, right? Because these stories or these images tell a story that everyone has access to, whether they can read, whether they can write. Aside from those who may be visually impaired, everybody else does have access to seeing these images and really interpreting them however they need to get the story. And that's what's so cool about them. There's an intended message, and then there's a message that you get where your story that you're seeing, the lens that you're viewing the image through, what do you take away from that? And I think that's really important, because there's a level of storytelling that happens in every single one of these images that are here.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, right? That's the beauty of these kinds of exhibitions. And, thinking about how I think historically museums haven't always been felt accessible to Black community. These kinds of exhibitions are so important in that regard, but also us stewarding story, right? Because, curation of our story and the telling of our narrative, centering it in whiteness, has just been something that I think so many of us as content creators really have to press upon now, because we have the tools available to us. We have the digitization of content and of our world. That means that now we have that opportunity to do just that. And so I really appreciated how you said that you came in with a lens of wanting to make sure that your children really knew who you were. And so I gotta ask, how is that going for you, right? How do your girls look up to their mom now and be like, my goodness, look at what you're doing?
Well, they're little. Yeah. So my oldest is 9, and then my 2 youngest are 3 and 1. So I think I can only speak for my oldest, but she said something the other day that made me go, okay, this is in her. She came up to me and she was like, Mommy, we missed Haitian Flag Day. And I was like, no, we didn't. And she's like, well, what day is it? And I was like, I don't know, you tell me what day it is. So she like kept guessing until she got it right. And then the next day, she was just like, all right, it's Haitian Flag Day. What are we doing? Because she knows, like, when these big days, Juneteenth, Haitian Flag Day, like, we're going to do a photo shoot of some sort that we can share, like, with the world. And so it was just like, you know, we're just going to recycle content this year because we've been really busy. But it just made me so happy to know that it was on her mind and on her heart, and that she felt like, you know, I need to know what the plan is. Like, what are we doing? Are we doing a photo shoot? Are we making a video? What's happening here? So that people know that this holiday is important to us. And so I would say that she is getting it. Like, there's a pride in her around these holidays, around these stories, around these people that matter to her. When we went to Little Rock Central High School, she knew all about the Little Rock Nine. It was really special for her to be there and to see it. When we crossed the bridge at Selma, you know, like, that meant something to her. She could talk about it and share that story. And so for me, when I watch her, when I hear her talk to other people, those are the moments where I'm like, she may not get it right now because she's 9, and it's just like she lives in a world where everyone's taking pictures, but to know that her story is recorded, that she can come back to it someday, I think is going to be really profound for her later on. And then the other two, you know, we'll just cross our fingers and see what happens.
Right. Well, I really, I love that. That's some real joy right there of being like, what are we doing? Let me get prepared. I love that. So she's already in the know. When we think about, you know, content, I was saying this other day, you know, you can be in a space, and for me, as a media person, I'm not always thinking, oh my God, I need to capture this, because there's a real juxtaposition behind what you're capturing in the camera and what you're experiencing, right? Tell us a bit about how you deal with that when you're traveling and also creating content, right? You're talking about this civil rights tour and how impactful it was for you, and I'm sure your husband as well, right? And just your family, but you're also like, I got to capture this. I got to make sure that we're showcasing what we're doing. Tell us a bit about how you balance that.
I think it's a hard balance because the world says that it doesn't exist unless you capture it, right? Like, it didn't happen if you don't capture it. I think one of our rules when we travel is that we never post in real time. So we're always a day late. And I think that allows for us to be present and to show up. Naturally, because I'm a photographer, we're just gonna always capture anyway. So our rule is like, overdo it. Like, just record everything, let's take pictures of everything, and we've mastered it down so that it only takes like a few minutes for us to get what we need. But I'm never sharing at the same time because I do want to be present. And I think that's why this trip was it went so well, and so many people got so much from it, because I had time to kind of record and capture everything all throughout the day while also being present with my family. And then at night, when my family would be sleeping, I would be processing what I learned and also sharing at the same time. So people were getting like my real reactions and my real responses. And so I just feel like maybe having some boundaries in place around, you know, when we go on vacation or when we go somewhere and we're learning something, yes, we're going to share it, but we're going to also allow ourselves the time and the space to enjoy it and to share later. So nobody ever really knows where we are, what we're doing, or if it's in real time unless I say that. And my audience that follows me is pretty aware that, like, they're not getting it while it's happening. But I think that's like the balance of, for me, being able to show up and be in the moment, and while also curating or creating content that I feel like will impact people.
Well, I think you hit a really good balance. I think it's still difficult for some to understand out there because, you know, I was at a concert a while back and somebody that just had their phone the whole time. And I'm
You're like, wait, you paid to come
I was
watch
like,
it.
but it, you know, and then so I pulled mine out a couple times because I think there's also something in me that I'm like, oh, I'm not. Like, if I don't see, I just won't even capture it because I'm just very present. But I really appreciate you in that response. Now, as somebody who's born and raised in Tacoma, we're here on your turf. We want to hear a bit about, you know, how you understand the culture of Tacoma. Now, this right here is, you know, all throughout Washington State. But, you know, there's something very special about a lot of the Black history and culture and legacy throughout Tacoma. Tell us a little bit about that from your perspective.
Yeah, I feel like there are figureheads and there are leaders that I grew up knowing about, you know. There were these beautiful, like, I'm trying to think of like different names and stuff, and I'm scared because I don't want to say like the wrong names or get them wrong. But I remember Miss Rosa was Rosa Franklin. She was one that I grew up like really loving, and my Aunt Claudia was mayor of Lakewood. I think there were like figureheads around here that we always kind of looked up to and respected. And I always kind of grew up knowing who those people were and just like really honoring them when I saw them out and about. I have a really unique story in terms of my journey in Tacoma, just because I wasn't a part of a family necessarily. So a lot of the connections and relationships that I made were things that I made like through high school or through like internships and things like that. I think Tacoma though is coming out of its underratedness. Like I think Tacoma is really special and really gritty and has like so much to offer. And I think you're starting to see, especially in my generation, a lot of like black leaders rise up. I can think of like Tafana Irvin, Senator, Nobles. Like there's so many really amazing young people. I want to say young because they're my age or younger, and I still feel very young, even though I'm like went from cousin to auntie overnight. But I feel like we're trying to put Tacoma on the map.
Yeah.
And I think we're really trying to like reclaim our city and really create a space for especially like black creatives, black business people to be seen and to be known. And to also encourage like black business owners who are new or who are young. We just had like this Tacoma Black Night Market that one of my little cousins put on that like did so well. It was amazing. And so I just feel like we're finding our flow.
Yeah.
But I think I feel like what happened in 2020 in the world allowed for black people to step into different things that maybe we have shrunk, or maybe we've been afraid to, or maybe we felt like no one cared or no one wanted to listen, or maybe there were things that existed in our own communities, and now we feel like there's room, that people are paying attention, that people want to be invited in, and we're like, cool, we're taking this invitation. I know for me, in my very short time on Earth, 39 years, I'd never lived through a time where I felt like people really wanted to hear what we had to say and actually cared. I'd like never experienced that before. So I think that when you have the ear of people that you want to, not everybody's listening, but a lot of people are, and a lot of people want to do better. I think you wake up and you like go, okay, what are we doing? We about to show up. We're gonna show that this is our chance, you know? And I know that's how I felt. I can't speak for everyone else, but I feel like that's what I feel in Tacoma. Like this is our moment to shine, and so we're like showing up and shining.
Showing up and shining.
Showing up and shining, okay?
I'm living for it. That needs to be on a t-shirt. Showing up and shining, okay?
Whoever makes it into a t-shirt, just
hit you up.
me.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Well, you know, before I let you go, we got to ask you about some of the top 5 spots here in Tacoma. If folks are coming here, where do they need to hit up? Of course, we keep hearing about Southern Kitchen. It's a staple.
Yeah, Southern Kitchen is a staple for sure.
Tell us about some of your spots.
I really love Pacific Southern. It's very, very good. Let me see. There's a new juice place on South Tacoma Way called Intentions. It's black owned and so good. Southern Kitchen is definitely, you gotta give respect. There's also Campfire Coffee, which is black owned here in downtown Tacoma, which is amazing. Okay, that's 4. 5th place, you gotta hit up me and Ike and Tash, you know what I'm saying? We gotta shoot your pictures, your family pictures, your senior pictures. Yeah.
So before we let you all the way go, Tash, make sure you look right there.
Okay.
Let folks know how they can connect with you, how they stay connected, how they follow you, how they can come to you and Ike and get some photos. Let them know right now how to catch up with you.
If you are looking for photography, you can hit us up anywhere online by searching Ike and Tash, kind of like Ike and Tina, but Ike and Tash. And you can find me anywhere online by searching It's Tash Haynes. I'm on every platform, killing it.
Wow.
I just had to gas myself real quick.
I love that. Every platform killing it.
I'm trying, I'm trying.
That's a mic
saying?
dropper right there. Tosh Haynes, thank you so much for
Thank you
being
for
with
having
me.
me.
Thank you for talking to me about this amazing exhibit, your experience as a true Tacomaan, and also as a content creator, a fellow person who is doing it for the culture. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Man, I'm telling you guys, y'all heard it right here from Tosh Haynes herself, telling us a bit about her experience as a professional photographer and content creator, but also how important this rich legacy here in Tacoma is to her and how the Green Book resonates with her as a professional photographer. It was a phenomenal time, and I'm telling y'all, you want to hit up Ike and Tosh for those photos. I know I'm about to be hitting her up because I definitely want some family photos. So you guys, let's do our part to, circulate dollars into the Black community by supporting a lot of these businesses and by boosting what our content creators are doing out here for the culture. Thanks for watching.